Tonight on Crimewatch, the murder of 22-year-old Royal Navy seaman Anthony Kavanagh.
They told me that he didn't have long. I just stood there and watched him.
Can you help his family find justice?
Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We are live and surrounded by detectives from around the UK, hoping that your call is going to be the one that has them knocking on doors tonight. I have to tell you, we had an extraordinary response to last month's show. Hundreds and hundreds of calls and some fantastic results, which we're going to tell you about a little later. This month, we are hoping for nothing less. In the next 60 minutes, we need your help to catch Anthony Kavanagh's killer. And can you name the gang who held an elderly couple prisoner in their own home?
Mulch around those aces.
And cut the lawn for the first time this year.
You! Lie down now!
So that's coming later. But Rav, who's in your sights tonight?
Well, one of the most dangerous men in the country is on my wall of shame this month. The rapist who's just escaped from court in Liverpool. And we're after the con man who thinks he can get away with daylight robbery. No way, Jose.
Plus, we reveal new information about Robert Morley, the child killer who murdered 9-year-old Imran Vora, in the hope that you can help unravel the truth about his horrific crimes.
But first, the senseless murder of 22-year-old Royal Navy seaman Anthony Kavanagh. Tony, as he was known to his family and friends, had just started shore leave and was pretty excited about getting home to Liverpool to enjoy a night out on the town with his mates. But when he was leaving a city centre pub that evening, he accidentally bumped into someone. And for that, and that alone, he lost his life. The killer's out there tonight and has murder on his conscience.
It's way too painful to think what's happened to my son. We're not complete, we're not our family no more, it's broken, we can't get it back. It's gone now.
He was just the greatest person I've ever met, you know, to have him taken away just completely ripped me apart.
On the 5th of October 2005, after spending 11 days in a coma, Anthony Kavanagh died. It was the day after his 22nd birthday. The reason for this senseless waste of life, he'd accidentally bumped into someone in a pub.
He'd do anything for you. He was protective, he was kind, he was funny, you could sit and have a joke with him. He was just a good lad. Tony
was just a soulmate, you know, basically the best person I've ever met. I haven't got a brother, so he was the brother I never had. He was always there for me, I was always there for him. I joined the Navy and then talked him into joining to go and see the world for free and get paid. When I went to his passing out parade, that feeling of when the whole mess come marching in and I seen my Tony in the front. Got my stomach just on a somersault, I thought, but God, that's my son. That day was the proudest day.
Right, mate.
Hey, Tony.
You OK?
Very well.
Permission to come on the bridge, please, sir.
Yes, please.
Here's a few, sir.
Thank you, Kavanagh.
Thanks, sir.
We'd just come home that day for our shore leave, which lasted till Monday morning.
What have you got planned for the weekend, then?
Have a good weekend. Not much, you know. Back to Liverpool tonight.
So we plan to meet up and go for a few drinks.
Right, cheers, lads. Ta-da.
He'd always text for something to be ironed for when he was going out. He liked it to be ready so we could dive in, shower, clothes, out the door as quick as possible to meet his friends. He was running late and I heard a beep outside and he said, "Mum, that's for me, I'm going, I'll have to go." And that was the last time I saw Tony.
busy around the Concert Square area of Liverpool city centre that Friday night. There were over 600 people in the walkabout alone, and each one of them could hold vital information as to what happened just before closing time.
The night it happened, there was 4 of us out. There was myself, Michael, Andy and obviously Tony. But we're only out for a social drink, really. None of us are really loud in it, and so it was just, you know, in-house jokes and a bit of banter between each other. It was 20 to 2, quarter 2-ish. We were saying, we'll leave now, it's too late, we'll, you know, beat the rush.
We're going. Sorry. What, mate? What?
I couldn't believe it happened. He's just hit the floor, smashed his head. My heart sunk.
I heard him mumbling and I shouted, Tony, Mum's here. Your mum's here, son, and they kept on saying he's very, very poorly. And I thought, my Tony, going to be okay.
It made me feel like, don't be silly, wake up now, come on. It's joke's over, stop joking now and get back out there. My mum's crying, wake up. It's not fair.
It was his birthday and I couldn't even, I never heard his voice. And I was trying to read his cards too. The next day, they told me that he didn't have long to get the family. And I just stood there and watched him.
I think about Tony pretty much every day. I only live 30 seconds from where he's buried, so pretty easy for me to pop in and just, you know, say a quick hello and realise just how much I miss him. And just wish I could turn back the clock, to be honest, and not go out that night.
I have to live my life each day as it comes, because it's way too painful to think what's happening to my son and knowing that there's no justice for him. So I have to have it day by day, and when the justice comes, then maybe I can grieve for my boy.
It's just appalling what that mother has been through. I'm joined by DCI Tim Keelan. I guess, Tim, one of the most shocking aspects of this is that this attack was completely unprovoked.
Yeah, it was just an ordinary bunch of lads minding their own business out for the night in Liverpool.
Let's go back then to the Walkabout bar. Really busy on that night. People must have seen it.
Yeah, they must have seen it. There were approximately 600 people in the Walkabout that night, and every one of them was a potential witness, and we believe that many of the people in there did see this.
OK, let's wind back to the date then, 24th of September 2005. Now, people might say, for God's sake, 4 years ago, can't remember what I was doing. If people had seen this punch, they wouldn't have forgotten it. That's right.
Tony was just walking out of the pub when he accidentally bumped into someone, and we think that, I'm confident that there are people out there who will know who's done this. Maybe it's family, friends, or someone who works with the person who done this. Okay. But I am confident that there will be persons out there who know who's done it. Yeah, and who remember it clearly. You got a good e-fit of the attacker. Let's start with that. Yeah, the guy who we believe we're looking for is a man of about 6 foot tall. He's 21 or 23 years of age. He's athletic build, and he's described as having short brown hair cropped.
OK, we want to show people something very important. You've got CCTV of two men who were in the bar that night that you want to trace. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, we're looking... This is CCTV footage from outside the premises after the incident. And we're looking at people who've probably exited from the pub. The guy on the right in the beige T-shirt is a man by the name of David Corgill. We know that David used to live in Liverpool, but he may well now live abroad, and we're very anxious to speak to him because he may have information which may assist us to actually find out who's done this.
OK, so he or anyone who knows him should get in touch with you. That's the advice tonight. Please, I would urge you to think very carefully if you can help, because anybody who is shielding Tony's killer has to think about what they are doing to his family. Maybe you're a mother too. Maybe you've got information. Do the right thing and call us 0500 600 600, or you can call the independent charity Crime Stoppers, completely anonymous. They'll give you their number. It's 0800 555 111. If you need to see that reconstruction again, to check the details, it's online, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. Right now, here's Rav with the first of tonight's Most Wanted.
Kidnap, murder and firearms offences are all on the bill tonight, so take a good look at this lot. And first up here is rapist Byron Edward Toner. Now, he made headlines this month when he jumped over the dock and escaped from Liverpool Crown Court. Unbelievably, Toner made off in a bronze-coloured taxi. He'd just been found guilty of the violent rape of a teenager who he'd left with nearly 60 injuries, including a broken jaw. Now, there's a £5 reward for information leading to his capture, but he's a nasty piece of work, so if you see him, steer well clear and just call police immediately. Now, I don't know what my number two is smiling about. He's 36-year-old Derek Jones, and he's wanted in connection with the drugs trafficking of Class A drugs. He uses the name Derek Donaldson, or the street name of D. He's originally from Wolverhampton and could well still be there, but also has links to Bristol, Aberdeen, Leicester and Manchester. Now, our next two here are wanted for kidnapping and assaulting a man and a woman in Hull back in September. Number 3 is John Christopher Smith, and at number 4 is Edward James Kenny. They're both 28 years old and originate from Merseyside. So, do you know where Kenny or Smith or any of the others are hiding out tonight? Pick up the phone now if you do, 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399, just type crime space and then your message, and it's more to leave that space, remember, or your message won't get through. And you can also check these mugshots out online, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. And remember, all of our most wanted stay on that website until they're caught.
Coming up, the teenager murdered in front of a gang of boys. So why won't any of them speak out?
Wait, where is he? I would have liked the people who took Edwin's life to see what they've done.
Can you name the man decapitated and robbed of his identity nearly 20 years ago?
And how many crimes has the child killer Robert Morley actually committed?
So all of that is still to come. Now, Tony and Doreen Lofthouse, right here, are well known in Fleetwood in Lancashire. They're the owners of the famous throat lozenge company Fisherman's Friend. Because of the work that Doreen does for charity, she's been awarded first an MBE and then she got an OBE. But in March this year, the medals were stolen, along with £500,000 worth of jewellery, as part of a targeted robbery when the couple were ambushed, assaulted and then held prisoner in their own home.
About 7:15 on a Saturday morning, picked the milk up on my way in. I come round to the back of the house, saw that the lights was on. I thought, oh, Mr. Lofthouse is up.
Frank! 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 Up here!
I'm looking round and looked up, and Mr. Lofthouse was looking through the bathroom window.
We've been burgled! We're locked in the bathroom!
I'll go and get some help straight away. It was a shocking sight. I thought, oh my God, what's happened to him?
I just feel really, really angry that they thought that the right to do what they did. Nobody should do that to another human being.
I was just so horrified. It was like the worst nightmare anyone could have.
Fisherman's Friend started in 1865 when my great-grandfather opened his first chemist shop. We built the factory in 1972, and I still go every day. I just absolutely love it, and it's in my blood.
Hi, Mr. Rothbell. How's it going?
Everything's fine, no problem.
You had problem with number 2 yesterday.
Yesterday. It's okay now, though.
Any more problems, let me know.
I will do. All right. See you so much, Rothbell.
Sonny came home. We sat down and we talked about what had gone on in the business during the day.
Just going to take the dog for a walk, love. See you later. Come on, Ben, come on.
About 5 or 10 minutes with him, because I mean, he's not a big dog, he doesn't need a great deal of exercise.
That's it, that.
I came back in and locked the door behind me. We just sat at the dining table in the kitchen watching the TV.
Nothing seemed unusual. It was calm and quiet.
There you are, love.
Oh, thanks. High-profile meeting. 6 letters.
I think you can get some mulch around those aces.
And cut the lawn for the first time this year.
Lie down now!
Suddenly, oh my God, these 2 men in black ran down the stairs.
Where's he stay?
Up the stairs.
Go with him now! Quickly!
Don't hurt him.
Don't you hurt her!
So we got upstairs. He made me show him the safe and the key and asked where the diamonds were. I told him.
I tried to have a go at this little one, but he was just going at me with the screwdriver and with the crowbar, and so I'd done it with bare hands. There wasn't a great deal more I could do, so I did get a beating.
And that's for being a hero!
When I came downstairs afterwards and saw the blood, that undoubtedly was the worst moment.
It's all right, love. I'm okay, am I?
I knew this guy was serious.
On your feet! Quickly! Go! I said quickly!
It was a strange thing. The little one said, "We'll put them in the comfort room." That sounded to me like an Americanism, but I'd asked him where he was from because he did a strange accent, and he said he was from Silesia.
You stay here or I'll kill you!
They locked us in the bathroom. We couldn't get out.
Now, don't worry.
And we thought, well, there's only one thing to do. We'll have to lie down on the floor. We were stuck there until 8 o'clock the next day.
That must be Frank.
Oh, thank God.
Oh. Frank! Frank! Up here!
I didn't realise at the time, but they'd taken my OBE, which was presented to me by Prince Charles. Very special occasion.
It was found in Fazakerley in Liverpool, in the bonfire that they'd made, and it was returned to her by the police, but she said, "No, thank you. I don't want it." Now it's been through their hands. So it was a very sad end to what was a very, very proud time for her.
People that did this to Mr. and Mrs. Lofthouse are just scum. They're animals. They just didn't give a damn after locking them up whether they lived or died.
It's still with her. She's not got over it properly. I mean, she's a very, very brave woman and gutsy, but this has really affected her.
I see those 2 figures coming down the stairs. I still see them. The reason I want these 2 men to be caught is that I hope and pray that they won't be in a position to put anyone else through what Tony and I went through that night.
Dear me. Well, I'm joined now by DI Glenn Oldham. It was horrible what this elderly couple went through. And, I mean, they were pretty awful, pretty gruesome injuries that Mr Lofthouse sustained there.
Absolutely. He was hit over the head with a crowbar. He was bleeding very profusely from that, just trying to save his wife. They were then locked in a bathroom overnight, no means of calling for help. He could have died.
Given that it's no secret that Lofthouses are pretty wealthy, is it your view that they were targeted in the attack?
I think they were clearly targeted by the offenders. They live in a difficult location to find. The offenders must have done their homework. They also asked where the safe was several times.
Now, we saw from the reconstruction those guys were masked. What can you tell us? Give us a description as far as you can.
Certainly one of the offenders, the most aggressive one, was about 5'5", stocky build. We think he had spectacles under his balaclava, and the balaclava had a red motif, like a diamond motif, on the front of it.
Okay. They did use unusual language, which might give you some pointers, maybe from Germany, maybe from Poland.
One of the offenders said they were from Silesia. Mr Lofthouse thought that they had a funny way of speaking, possibly Eastern European, but we are keeping an open mind that they may actually be strong regional accents, or they may be of putting the accents on.
But what about in terms of where they're based? Do you think they might have strong links to Liverpool?
Absolutely. Mrs Lofthouse's OBE was actually found in Merseyside, quite close to Walton and Fazakerley, on a footpath. The offenders who'd stolen it had tried to just burn the item.
Yeah, she doesn't want it back now. You do understand that, but there it is there. That's the one you found in the fire. You think, given that the house was in a pretty awkward position, you think they left in a car?
We believe so, yes. In fact, one member of the public saw a suspicious male close to the Lofthouse's property on Amounderness Way at Thornton. This male was stood at the side of the road. There's no footpath, very unusual for somebody to be stood there. He was approximately 5'8", wearing a beige jacket and had a holdall clutched to his chest. Did anybody see that person?
OK, that could be important, Glenn. For now, thanks very much. If you think you know who did this, then please do pick up the phone now. There is a reward on offer for information leading to a conviction. The number, it's 0500 600 600. If you've been a victim of crime, don't forget the victim support line. They're on 0845 30 30 900. Now here's Rav with some more faces in the frame.
And what a bunch. My number 5 here is Derek Robertson, and he was jailed for indecent assault back in December 2003. He was freed after 4.5 years. He's now wanted for breaking the conditions of his release. Robertson is originally from Forfar in Scotland, but he's believed to be hiding out now in London. My number 6, this guy is Thomas Power, wanted in connection with a violent and unprovoked assault in Bury, Manchester. The victim was attacked with a spade and has been left paralysed from the shoulders down. Power's 23 years old and was recently spotted in Birmingham and London. Next, here is Lawrence Piatti, and he's wanted for his involvement in a shooting in Putney, south-west London, and also for assaulting a police officer during his arrest. He was charged but failed to turn up at court or answer bail for the firearms offence. He's a British Filipino and may be using the name Barikutos. And finally, look at the face on number 8. He's Vasil Mihai, and he's wanted for robbery. He was charged back in March but skipped bail and has been on the run ever since. Mihai is of Romanian origin and has links to Derby and Birmingham. So, where are they hiding tonight? If you know, don't wait, call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399. Just type crime, space, and then your message. Don't forget to leave that space, or your message will not get through.
Now, almost 20 years ago, a walker in Woodland near the south coast made a gruesome discovery. Hidden in the undergrowth lay the body of a man who had been mutilated, his hands severed, his torso decapitated. Whoever murdered him had gone to great lengths to ensure his identity would never be discovered. And despite years of police work, it never has been. But now, detectives have exhumed this man's remains, and with new clues from scientific tests, they hope that someone watching tonight will finally give him a name.
Tonight, the identity of the murder victim is still unknown.
The man was found in Woodland off Broxmead Lane at Bolney.
Hope an intensive search of Woodland where he was found will provide an answer.
This area of woodland near Bolney, West Sussex, is just off the A23 to Brighton and marks the spot where the mutilated body of a man was discovered in October 1991. Despite an exhaustive investigation, the headless victim has never been identified.
Pallbearers carry a man to his final resting place, but there are no friends or relatives to mourn his passing. The coffin is marked simply unknown male.
18 years on, we still have no idea who this man is. There's a family out there that have lost a son, and the people responsible have never been brought to justice. But now, with the huge developments in science, we're one step closer to finding the truth. We had forensic anthropologists re-examine the remains, original reports and photographs from 1991. We now know that the man was in his early to mid-30s, and he would have been 5'6" to 5'8". He was healthy and strong. He was also circumcised and had a star-shaped mark on the outside of his right thigh. But his bones were to reveal even more information.
In any forensic investigation, what you try to do is actually try to reconstruct the crime or the past history of the person. We took bone samples from the police at the exhumation site. We have analysed the femur, the biggest bone in the body, which records about 6-7 years of a person's life history. Everything we eat and drink and the environment we live in, we take up traces in the form of isotopes which get recorded into the bones. The results from these analyses we can compare with databases, with maps from all around the world.
The results indicated that this man could have spent some years in Central or Eastern Europe. So was he a foreign national living in Britain? Scientists were also able to test the toenails for further clues about where he was living prior to his death.
The unique thing about the toenails is that they record about 1 to 1.5 years of the last history of the person's life. In our analysis, we could show that the person had been living somewhere in the middle or eastern parts of the UK, or actually on the western part of the German border during the last period of his life.
Returning to the cemetery for a second burial, the mystery man who was murdered nearly 18 years ago.
Here, in this cemetery, lies an unmarked grave containing an unnamed man who was murdered in the most grotesque way. We now know a little more about him, but we need your help to give him back his identity and to catch those who took it.
What a mystery. Well, Detective Superintendent Andy Griffiths is with us now in the studio. You want to find the murderer, but you can't find the murderer until you know who this man is.
Absolutely. Someone didn't want this man identified. In 1991, fingerprints and photograph were the only thing we could use to identify him, but now we exhumed him because of the massive developments in science.
Right, let's look at all the clues to his identity, the old clues you had and the new clues that science has given you.
Yeah, well, this man was white, he was in his mid to late 30s,
Yeah.
he was 5'6" to 5'8" tall. He was also circumcised and he was strongly built but had a protruding belly.
Okay.
We think he was a smoker. He also had a mark on his thigh. And we've got two theories looking at the new information as to where he was from. Firstly, that he was a foreign national who'd come to the UK in the last part of his life, but alternatively, that he might have been a UK national who'd spent some time abroad.
Okay.
Maybe in the army, possibly, but that's not certain. So we've done some work with missing people from that time, but if you had a relative or a friend missing from that period who answers the description, get in touch with us.
Do you get any clues, Andy, from where the body was dumped?
Well, the body was dumped about a mile from a very busy road that was being widened at the time in 1991. There was a lot of construction work going on there. If there was a construction worker who saw something suspicious, we'd like to hear from them.
You've got a lot of information about the clothes that the victim was wearing at the time. You hope that this might strike a chord with people. Take us through what you can tell us.
Yes, well, the shirt and the trousers he was found in were both from Foster's. The shirt had a motif on it. They were made in 1986, but of course he was wearing them in 1991. So we're interested maybe to hear from a buyer from Foster's from that time who can tell us a bit more about that. The trousers had been turned up and had been hand sewn, and they were a 32-inch waist.
Okay, you've got a DNA profile. Is that significant, do you think?
Absolutely. If someone's worried about ringing us, don't be. We've got a DNA profile. We can eliminate people from this. So if they answer the description, please give us a ring.
OK, we hope somebody watching tonight has the answer to your mystery. Thanks for joining us. We reckon that someone out there tonight must know who this man is. If you've got even the slightest idea, then do call us now. It could be just the information that detectives here need, and we do have a DNA profile to 0500 600 600, or you could text 63399. Now, in September, we asked for your help to solve the horrific murder of 36-year-old taxi driver Mohammed Arshad. In a frenzied attack, the father of 3 was stabbed 6 times in the head.
How do you explain to a small child that someone's stabbed his dad 6 times in the head, and when he asks you why and you can't answer that, then tell me how you feel?
Well, Matthew is here to update us. Matthew, can you please, first of all, remind us of the details of the case?
Well, this was a horrific case. Arshad had gone up to pick a passenger in the Kings Norton area of Birmingham. The passenger had called himself Peter when he booked the cab. Now, the pickup was at 8:30. Within 6 minutes, Arshad was found stabbed on a country lane.
And the killer used Arshad's car, is that right? To get
Yes,
away?
his blue Ford Galaxy. That was dumped nearby. I think it's worth looking at the geography again. This here, the Broad Meadow School, was the pickup point. Here, the Wast Hill Lane was where Arshad was found. And very nearby, the Hawksley estate was where the car was dumped. All of that, a 3-mile radius.
Now, crucially, police have got a significant new lead. There is a man that they desperately want to eliminate. Tell us about this man.
Yeah, have a look at this. It's CCTV. This man gets onto a number 35 bus at the Fold by Speedwell House just after 10 to 9. Remember, that's 15 minutes after the murder. He stays on the bus for 6 minutes before getting off at the junction of Bramwood Park Road and Monihull Hall Road. Now, as you saw, the images are good, they're clear. The police are saying if you're that man on the bus or you recognise him, please get in touch.
OK, a really important development, Matthew, thanks. If you want another look at that CCTV, it is on our website, just go there. If you've got any information that could help police catch Arshad's killer, then please do call now. I should say there's a 10 grand reward for information leading to an arrest and a conviction, 0500 600 600, or you could text 63399. Or if you'd like to remain anonymous, that's fine by us. You can call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. Now here's Rav with some criminals caught on camera.
Right, here we go. Watch closely, and if you recognise anyone, get dialing.
All aboard! It's the train to Highbury and Islington in North London back in August. Keep an eye on these two. A couple in their 60s get on and sit down opposite them. They're minding their own business when, for no reason, the girls start kicking off. They shout racist abuse, and as the couple try to escape, things turn nasty. The pair say they've got a knife and push the woman hard to the floor. Her partner steps in, but he's attacked too. It's only when other passengers intervene that the couple are finally safe. This was a racist, violent and unprovoked attack. Stop this gruesome twosome before they strike again. Luckily, one quick-witty commuter snapped this on his mobile phone. Isn't modern technology great? Blackpool Victoria Hospital in October last year. It's nearly 11 at night and visiting hours finished ages ago. So I wonder what these lads are up to. They look pretty shifty, and no wonder. They're wanted for nicking 900 quid from the patient line machines. Stealing from a hospital. These guys really are sick. From these pictures, I'd diagnose them with a nasty case of stupidity. Names, please. 2 banks, 1 con man. This one's in Surrey back in May, and this one's in Coventry last June. He must really like that jacket. He's wanted for using forged banker's drafts to buy high-value goods like Rolex watches worth thousands. Each time he meets his victim, goes with them to the bank and gives them a fake cheque to pay in before walking away with the goods. Here he is in Coventry waiting outside the bank for one unsuspecting victim. Buy a belt, mate. He passes the time by practising the waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Not sure what Craig Rebel Horwood would think about that. He soon gets impatient and goes back inside to check out what's going on. When the bank start asking questions, he makes a quick exit, but he's already struck at least 5 times all over the country. It's daylight robbery. Don't let him get away with it. Who is it? Who's this in this car park in South East London last June? He checks the coast is clear and then pours something over one of the cars. After fiddling around inside, he suddenly runs off. Oh, I now see why. Think he got confused about what bonfire night is. Penny for the guy. Actually, just his name will do.
Think you know them? You know what to do. 0500 600 600. And if you need a second look, it's also online, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. Or remember, you can text us on 63399. Just type crime, space, and then your message.
Now, 2 years ago, 19-year-old Edwin Johnson here was about to start a business degree at Southampton University. His mum, over the moon at the prospect, should have been busy helping him with the move. Instead, her time was taken preparing for his funeral, because days before he was due to leave, he was murdered on the estate that he lived on all his life.
2 years ago, my son was murdered in Crawford Estate.
400 windows, had the vantage point to kind of see where it happened, but we just need one witness.
I believe that someone, somewhere, knows who took Edwin's life.
Edwin was a vibrant young man. He was intelligent, he was bright, you know.
In his short time on this earth, he made a difference. Everyone seemed to always want to be around Edwin. He seemed to be the glue which kept everyone together.
What is he doing? He's crazy. It's like, why? So he's going to manage to farm all by himself, man? Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, no, it's a lot of meat, though, you know what I mean? Christmas, man. It's like, buffet. Buffet.
Which you haven't seen it then? Oh, we'll definitely get that one. You're going to like it.
They left to go and collect another DVD from another friend's house when he was approached by these young people who stopped them.
Yeah, so do you know who actually acts in this film? Cause like, I don't know, like,
Make sure you do. Yo.
Where
take him off.
Where's the guy? Where's the guy?
Take him off. You on here? Check. Yo. Ain't that the guy? That's that guy right there. Yo, shine.
Hey, let's carry on walking, man. Let's carry on walking.
Hey, Blood, you got any weed?
No, mate. Hey, they're coming, man. They're coming.
Yeah, cool.
Wait, where is he? What are you doing? You're punching him. Where's the number for him? Please, man. Oh, man! Call the ambulance, man! Hurry up, Melis! Stop, the boy's bleeding. Please do not run. Come quickly, because it's outside. Come on, man. I'm in trouble, I don't even know if he's moving anymore.
Edwin died at 10:45. I went to the hospital. He was lying on the table. I held his hand and he was lifeless. And I kissed him on his forehead, and that was the last time I saw Edwin. I would have liked the people who took Edwin's life to see what they've done, the pain they've caused me and my family. How difficult it was for a mom to go and see your son like that, your healthy young son who had so much to live for.
A vibrant young man with his whole life ahead of him. I'm joined by DCI Andy Redwood. An appalling tragedy for this family, and made all the harder by the fact that Edvin's mother and brother live in a flat that is just a matter of a few feet from where he died.
It's incredibly difficult, Kirsty, and the nightmare for them continues on a daily basis. Bringing justice by catching the killers is the only way for the family to move forward.
Edvin was not the intended target that night.
No, he wasn't, and I know from what was said at the scene and from the inquiries we've conducted since that they weren't looking for Edvin. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right, Andy, this is the knife here. That was the knife that was used. Tell us about it.
Yes, a domestic kitchen knife found in a drain with Edvin's blood on it. I know how to buy a knife like this. What I need to know is which kitchen is it missing from?
Yeah, that's the key bit of information. There were a lot of young people around when this happened. Not a lot of young people are coming forward to talk to you. That's a problem.
It is a problem, and reluctance can be caused by misguided loyalty and fear. But I specifically am appealing to two groups. The first would be that I know there was more than the killers in terms of young people at the scene.
Yeah.
I need to speak to them if they saw or heard what happened. Secondly, and undoubtedly, the killers would have been bragging and showing off about what they'd done. If any young person has heard that evidence, they need to make the call this evening.
But, Andy, you surely cannot blame any young person who is utterly terrified about the thought of picking up that phone tonight. What can you say to them?
I can give a personal assurance that I will deal with issues of their safety as my utmost priority.
OK.
And if either they or their family or their friends would like to ring in this evening, then I'm happy to speak to them directly to explain what that means.
OK, you can absolutely assure them of that. They'll get through to you. They'll speak to you tonight live. Whoever murdered Edvin has to be caught. Please do not let this weigh on your conscience. I should tell you there's a huge reward. £20,000 for information leading to an arrest and a prosecution. You can call or text us now. There are the numbers on the screen. 0500 600 600 is the phone number. The text number 63399. Now here's Reverend Matthew with news about the amazing response that we had last month.
Yeah, and from the moment we went on air last month, the phone started ringing off the hook, and we took literally hundreds and hundreds of calls, many in response to our appeal on the murder of Melanie Hall, the 25-year-old psychology graduate who disappeared in 1996, and there was no trace of her until 5 weeks ago when her bones were found wrapped in a bin bag at the side of the M5. So, this is a scene?
Yes, it is, yeah.
So it's right under here. What was discovered within here then?
As they were conducting the excavation process, we found a gold ring, which was quite distinctive, and it appeared to still be on a finger bone of the remains. And clearly it was at that point that we suspected that these may be the remains of Melanie Hall.
We now know that she was brutally beaten about the head, tied up in some bin bags, and thrown away on the side of a motorway like a crisp packet.
Well, Melanie's parents, Steve and Pat, were absolutely delighted with the response, as were detectives on the case, who are now following up some important leads. So thanks to each and every one of you who called in, and will remain in close contact with the investigation team to keep you updated on developments.
Well, we also asked for your help to find the man who sexually assaulted a 78-year-old woman.
Please watch an emergency. Hiya, there's a lady across the road from there. Somebody's passed away now. And strange, do you think the lady's still in the property? The lady's in the property, but... And is she elderly, or...? Yes, she's an elderly woman. She's elderly.
Well, we had another fantastic response. Well over 100 people phoned the studio, and as a direct result, a 51-year-old man has been arrested and now charged with rape, sexual assault and robbery.
And finally, 2 months ago, we asked for your help to solve the murder of Sally Ann Baxter-Smith and her daughter, Lois, in their home in Eastbourne. It was set on fire, remember, after a deliberate attack.
And I had to go and tell my sister that she'd survived and they hadn't. Which is one of the hardest things I ever had to do.
We had a great response. Dozens of calls came into the studio, but detectives desperately want one man to get in touch again. The caller rang in during our update show, giving the name of a suspect. If you're that man, please call in again tonight. You could give the police the breakthrough they finally need to get justice for Sally Ann and Lois.
Now, there are some crimes, like the sadistic murder of 9-year-old Imran Vora, that are so heinous they are never forgotten. The Lancashire schoolboy was abducted, raped and then killed back in 1985. His parents had to endure a 24-year wait before finally being told this year that the man who had murdered their son was 62-year-old drifter Robert Morley. Detectives now know that Morley was a violent paedophile, but they believe he may have committed many more offences before his death 12 years ago. Can you shed light on any of them tonight?
This is the face of a sexual predator and child killer. 24 years ago, he committed a crime so brutal it sent shockwaves through the nation.
This is just such a terribly sad case. For it to be unresolved for 25 years, it's just such a long, long time.
The case was the horrific murder of a 9-year-old boy. His name was Imran Vora.
OK, so there's the bell. We need to pack away quickly today, so can you just slip everything into your drawer, please?
One day, back in 1985, Imran finished school and stayed in the playground playing marbles. He'd normally walk home with friends, but for some reason, this day was different.
Why not coming home today? Nah, I'm ready for here for some. I'll see you tomorrow.
When his classmate left, Imran was standing at the gate. 45 minutes later, he was seen with a man in his 40s. They were heading for Avenham Park, where Imran had a series of dens and loved to play. It was the last time he was seen alive. The alarm was raised almost immediately when Imran failed to turn up for lessons at a local mosque later that day. By the next morning, a massive police search was underway. Local people turned out in their droves to join the hunt, and mounted police combed the entire district.
Come over here.
Within hours, Imran's body was found. He was lying naked from the waist down. Tied to a nearby tree were his trousers, left by the killer as a chilling calling card. The grim details of Imran's sadistic death shattered the community here in Preston. The little boy had been raped and murdered, strangled with shoelaces.
In 1985, this was probably the biggest murder hunt that the Lancashire Constabulary had ever run. In the region of 100 investigators were attached to this inquiry. A huge number of people were interviewed, both within the Preston area and across the UK, sadly all without success.
But a significant clue lay buried in a statement taken days after Imran's murder. A witness recalled how the schoolboy had recently met a mystery man who spoke German. But initial inquiries failed to trace him. With little to go on, detectives pinned their hopes on crime scene evidence after a post-mortem on Imran's body discovered semen that could only be from the killer. But back then, DNA technology was in its infancy and couldn't be used to identify offenders.
In 1985, we didn't have the technology available to get DNA results from samples that we recovered from the scene. And also, we didn't have a national DNA database, so we couldn't compare any results that we had against samples from known offenders.
As the case went cold, detectives had no choice but to wait for science to catch up. It would take nearly a quarter of a century and huge advances in DNA technology before the case could be solved.
Our piece of luck came in this case when a relative of Imran's killer was convicted of a serious offence and went on the national DNA database. That man was the key to unlocking this case and allowed us to ultimately find Imran's killer.
The trail led police to Robert Morley, a man who'd been dead for 12 years. But knowing the killer's name was just the beginning.
We simply had an identification of a man who, on the face of it, lived in and around London for most of his life. it only painted half the picture. The detective work came into play then to paint the rest of Morley's life, particularly in and around Lancashire.
Police had to prove he was capable of killing and began piecing together every aspect of the sadist's disturbing life.
We established that Morley was born in 1935 and spent much of his early days in and around the London area, with the exception of a short period of time, interestingly, when he was evacuated to Lancashire during the war. And that's when we think he made his first connections with Lancashire and may account for why he came back here.
Welcome there for you.
At 14 years old, the first signs of Morley's sexual deviance were recorded when he was arrested for indecent exposure. By the age of 16, Morley's behaviour had deteriorated further, and after a spate of shoplifting, he was sent by the courts to an approved school, a place well known for strict discipline and corporal punishment.
Hand out.
Morley joined the army in 1955 and was posted to Germany, working as a postal clerk. We know that he met his first wife out there, who was German, and spent a good deal of time living in that country.
Detectives now know that Morley's wife taught him to speak German. It seems too much of a coincidence to think Morley was not the German speaker who befriended Imran in the days before his murder. Morley left the army in 1962 under a dark cloud. In 6 years of service, he appeared before magistrates 3 times for stealing and receiving stolen goods.
Morley's criminal history demonstrated that he was a prolific thief, stealing checkbooks, breaking into gas meters and the like.
His personal life was also deteriorating. By the age of 30, Morley had 6 children, but his marriage was over. He moved to Lancashire and started drinking heavily. As Morley's life spiralled into alcoholism, he drifted from job to job and woman to woman. He also started going missing for long periods of time. To where and to do what, detectives don't know. What they do know is that his womanising had turned into violence and abuse.
We've spoke with a number of women who have been in contact with Robert Morley throughout the years, and they describe a man who is controlling, sexually aggressive.
I'm not in the mood.
What do you mean you're not in the mood?
Bob, I said no. Bob, I said stop it. No. No. Say come on. Bob, I don't want to. Stop it.
Morley's grim catalogue of violence continued unchecked throughout the 70s.
Increasingly, as well as being aggressive towards women, you know, disturbingly, I think Imran may not have been the only child who suffered at his hands.
By 1981, Morley had moved here to Preston. 4 years later, he led Imran Vora to his death. When Morley ran away from the schoolboy's body that day, he had no way of knowing that 24 years later, his past would catch up with him.
Each time a new DNA technique has been introduced, the case has been revisited, and this ended with us getting a DNA result from the crime scene in 2006.
Detectives now had the killer's DNA, but it wasn't until last year the breakthrough finally came.
Jaffa, we've got him.
When a man was charged with a serious offence and his DNA loaded onto the national database, the profile was so similar to the killer's, detectives knew they were related. But how? A process of elimination began, and the trail quickly led to just one man, Robert Morley. When detectives discovered he died of lung cancer in 1997, it was a massive blow. But ultimately, it was his death that betrayed the darkest secret of his life. DNA from a lung biopsy taken at the time of Morley's treatment was compared to the DNA from the 1985 murder scene. It proved categorically that Robert Morley was Imran's killer.
This is an investigation that's spanned almost a quarter of a century, and it was never going to have a happy ending, but we have reached an ending nonetheless. And I really do hope that that conclusion has been able to bring some solace for Imran's mum and dad.
Finally, after all these years, we know the truth about Imran Vora's brutal murder. But we still don't know the whole truth about Morley's life. Until detectives have the complete picture, we'll never know who else might have suffered in the way little Imran did.
That's the big question, Matthew, isn't it? How many other children might he have attacked?
Yeah, the police and the profilers are absolutely convinced there are more victims, perhaps many more. I mean, this happened in 1985. Morley died in 1997, so there's a gap of 12 years that detectives are desperate to fill in. I mean, they know some of his movements. He moved away from Lancashire pretty soon after this murder and then lived in Sussex, in Essex, in London, in Hertfordshire. I think it's also worth having a look at some of those photographs again, because some have never been published before.
Right.
And police obviously want to hear from people who are looking at those photos and thinking, that's the person that attacked me.
You mentioned their criminal profilers. Was Morley a classic sexual predator in a profile sort of a way?
Absolutely. I mean, he targeted vulnerable people, vulnerable women, and then later on, obviously, a child. There was the stealing also that the profilers pinpointed. Strangely, that often crops up in the history of sexual offenders, that notion of just taking something you want, instant gratification, and that's a trait that becomes so warped later in life, so classic signs.
It's not always the case that it's the signs that catches them, but it was on this occasion pretty much.
It is the only encouraging aspect of a tragic case like this, the notion that scientific advances allows those cold cases, there are thousands of them, the chance to go back and find that fragment of new evidence to solve cases, and that's what happened here.
OK, let's go to Rav now to see what's coming in on the phones. Rav.
Good calls already on Anthony Kavanagh, the young sailor who was killed with a single blow in Liverpool. We've had 2 names put forward for the offender there. Then we showed you the brutal burglary of the Loft House family. We've had 2 names put forward for the offenders there. And very quickly, Edwin Johnson, killed in Camberwell. 2 names, but 2 have come up exactly the same twice.
Thanks, Rav. That is all for now. Details on all of tonight's cases are, of course, online. It's bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. You can log on right now for a live update on what's happening here on the phone. Seems to me like it's been a pretty busy night. The lines are open until midnight tonight and from 7:30 tomorrow morning. Our next programme, that's going to be on Monday, the 21st of December. But don't go away tonight, because we're going to be back, of course, after the news with a full update on all of tonight's cases. If you can help but you haven't called yet, please do it now. It could all be down to you. See you at 10:35.